Hi everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoy our shows, please like our videos and subscribe to our channel. And you can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruth.tv.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Age of Truth TV. I'm Lucas Alexander in Copenhagen, Denmark. It's the 24th of November 2019, and our guest today has become an important and critical voice and speaker on the topic of 5G and the dangers and health effects of electromagnetic radiation and frequencies. He's in Denmark to lecture on 5G and to take part in an anti-5G demonstration. John KITSON.
And I gotta say, I love the people of Denmark.
John KITSON, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the show and welcome to Denmark as well.
Thank you so much for having me today, Lucas.
It's really great. And you're here, you've just been giving a lecture today on the dangers and health effects of 5G. And you're also going to take part in this demonstration against 5G taking place here in Copenhagen, Denmark. But in England, you're actually running as a candidate to become an MP Member of Parliament politician in the upcoming British election in December 2019. But please talk about how you got started. Why is 5G such an important and hot topic at the moment?
Sure. Well, I got started, I was living in Tokyo, and I noticed a lot of these smart meters going up outside of people's apartments, and I had one installed on my apartment, and I started to feel quite ill. I wasn't sleeping so well, I was developing headaches, and I also lost my mother a few years ago. She had one of these wireless landline phones, and she developed a brain tumor, and she developed worsening headaches while she had this phone. And I lost her a few years ago. She died. And I've just met more and more people now who've had health problems, who have been living with this technology. And when I heard about 5G, this whole new level of densification, I felt that this was a real problem. And when I met with doctors in the UK and scientists and looked at the research, I was convinced that this is a real threat, not just to human beings, but animals, insects, plants, all life forms. And so I felt something must be done. So I set up my website, 5gawareness.com, and my YouTube channel, 5G Awareness. And now I'm running to hopefully become a politician now in the UK. And I'll give back my whole salary to environmental groups, independent environmental groups that will, and also to, reduce the impact of 5G technology, any groups standing up to 5G. And I will announce that in the monthly newspaper. So that's if I get in. Or should I say when I get in, hopefully. I'm trying to stay as positive as possible. But I think the time is over now for corrupt politics, and every one of us needs to make a stand.
Do you think that you will get mainstream news coverage running as a Member of Parliament if you're talking about the dangers of 5G, since it's being rolled out all over the world and all the politicians, almost all of them, all over the world, voted yes to this rollout?
That's right. I'm confident that I will. I don't think I'll get as much attention as the average politician will. Some of these people who are saying it's not a problem. But we did have a breakthrough recently with the Daily Mail in the United Kingdom a month ago. They featured a whole page article on the moratorium in Totnes that I asked the council to put through. So I said, look, let's at least have invoked the precautionary principle, which basically means a halt on the rollout of 5G, or even better, a moratorium. And the Daily Mail interviewed me for that, and that's gone out to 11 million readers. And then ITV West Country have also interviewed me, which is a mainstream news channel. But yeah, you know, I would really like more mainstream penetration, and just for the mainstream media to cover a lot of these people who are speaking out on 5G, such as myself, Barry Trower, Mark Steele. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Are you part of the international appeal to stop 5G on Earth and in space?
I support that. Anybody can sign that one. So I think that's a really important appeal, the 5G space appeal. There's also the 5G EU appeal and the EMF scientist appeal. But I think that's an extremely important document that people should print out and share with their local representatives and politicians, friends and family. So yes, I fully endorse that appeal.
How do you think you can change the agenda if you are elected?
Well, I believe that I can hold the telecommunications companies to account. I can hold the government to account. And I believe that I can help to bring about a new shift in the way of thinking, you know, and it's all about holding people responsible for their actions. And at the moment, a lot of politicians are taking bribes. So I think if someone comes in where they're not taking a full salary, and there have been a lot of articles about MPs' expenses and corruption amongst politicians in the UK. So I'm hoping that this will bring about a new approach to representing the people in a more responsible manner. And I welcome any feedback from people who will be I will be representing in my local area, and I will welcome that feedback and look to improve in my position.
But most people think that 5G is just the 5th generation in order to get a faster running internet connection. What are your thoughts on this official narrative?
Right. Well, I think this is something that's just been pushed to disguise the fact that it's extremely dangerous, and also to disguise where this technology has really come from. I mean, we never hear about its military applications. You know, the fact that this technology has been used since World War II, it's been tested secretly in Vienna and Russia, according to Barry Trower, who's an expert on microwave radiation. And of course, yeah, there's no official acceptance of the health effects. But what is interesting is that in your phone, you can go to the settings and then about inside your phone, and it'll say that you must hold your phone a certain length away from your head. You know, there are warnings in the guidelines. But people really need to educate themselves about what 5G is really about. It is 5th generation, but it's a whole new generation of devices everywhere. It's densification. So we're talking the transmitters on the LED street lights, which will be every 2 to 10 homes, wireless smart meters, phone masts, Bluetooth in every device, such as your smart fridge, your smart boiler, your wireless electronic toothbrush.
That's Internet of Things, huh?
Internet of Things, yeah, exactly. So everything connecting wirelessly. So it's creating a more and more concentrated mesh of this wireless radiation, which we won't be able to escape from. And that is basically damaging our blood cells and our DNA. And there are hundreds of doctors. If people question me and they say, oh, where's the evidence that this is a problem? I point them towards the appeals. I point them towards the Lancet, which is a highly respected international medical journal with peer-reviewed research and science. And I say, well, look at what all these doctors and scientists are saying. And people find it very difficult to rebut that. And it's got a lot of people investigating further.
So people can find a lot of evidence if they really research this, because it's not out in the open, obviously. A lot of health ministries around the world, they say it's fine, there are no health risks, at
Right.
all. And I guess that is why a lot of politicians who may not be in the know of what 5G really is, maybe they just go along with that and say, if the health ministry is saying it's okay, then it's fine.
This is it. And the governments, Public Health England in the UK, for example, and of course in Denmark and the UK, they both rely on a body called ICNIRP. Now, ICNIRP stands for the International Commission for Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection. They're made up of 14 individuals based in Germany, and none of them have a medical background, none of them are doctors, none of them have a biological background in biology, and they're basing the exposures on just 5 minutes on an adult male head, so it doesn't take account of the effects on women and children who are more vulnerable. And you've got these 14 individuals versus all of these hundreds of doctors and scientists who are far more qualified saying it's a danger. And there are people in ICNIRP who are in the World Health Organization, who are in the telecommunications industries. So they're a completely compromised body that the government is just regurgitating this information again and again, and based on these 14 individuals in Germany. And it's a self-appointed body, so they just appoint the members themselves. And we really can't rely on this for evidence. So I think it's very important to really find out what this organization is and how unreliable the evidence is that they're pointing out.
Even the WHO, World Health Organization, they should be really concerned, shouldn't they?
They should be, yeah, and it's very sad to see, and it just shows that there's a lot of corruption. You know, we trust these global bodies. This is the problem. A lot of people say, "Oh, the UN, this is an official body." You know, what makes it official? We need to get our critical thinking skills back, I think, and show the same rigor with these global institutions as well.
So, do you think this is part of the UN Agenda 21 plan, which is now also UN Agenda 2030?
Yeah, UN Agenda 21 is quite interesting. People hear, UN Agenda 21, they think, this is some conspiracy theory. People need to research it online.
It's official.
It's official, right? I mean, you
the
can
Rio
look it up
conference in 1992.
Right? That's right, the Earth Summit,
Yes.
And people can just Google it. There's Wikipedia, or go directly to the UN site, and you'll find out about the Sustainable Development Goals. And the UN is pushing, if you actually look up, there's a booklet published by the UN, I think it's called the Compendium for Sustainable Development Goals or Solutions. And in there, they're promoting smart meters and smart grids, which are a key to the 5G rollout. They want everybody to have smart meters outside their homes, monitoring everything they're doing.
Outside their homes?
Outside, or sometimes inside their homes.
In
Japan,
Denmark, it's mandatory to have a smart meter, smart meter rigged up inside of your homes.
Oh, okay. So it's even worse than the UK then. In the UK, we can refuse one. Although the people who work for the telecoms companies, they'll say you have to have one. In Japan, they're just installing them outside people's homes. But yeah, these apparently cover 4 or 5 of these so-called sustainable development goals. But I ask people, I say, look, you've got a question. What is this about? Why have you got something called the International Telecommunications Union that is funding the UN? That speaks volumes, doesn't it? It shows they're completely compromised. And we have to question the whole premise that this is set on, right? Because this Rio summit talking about climate change, well, there are a lot of scientists, over 30,000, saying, hold on a minute, actually, global warming, we're getting a lot of we had ClimateGate, of course, which exposed the lies, the falsification of data due to man-made global warming, apparently. But how is this technology getting promoted? It's being promoted as having a low carbon footprint. The LED streetlights, the driverless electric cars, the smart meters, low CO2. So that's what they're using to push the 5G out. And that's what I think Extinction Rebellion was set up for as well, which I don't know if you have that in Denmark, but they've got a very big following in the UK.
So you don't believe the official narrative, what they are pushing very massively in the mainstream media, that climate change is real and that it is man-made, this whole CO2 propaganda scare, or what are your thoughts on that, and how is it connected to 5G?
Sure. I believe climate change is real, but I believe it's always been changing, the climate. But a lot of people will say, climate change denier. And this is the sign that someone's lost an argument as soon as they just hurl an insult at you. And you get a lot of these isms now where you'll be called an ism or climate change denier. And unfortunately, that's coming from people who just haven't done the research.
Climate change denier.
Yes.
That seems a little bit like a reference to those called a Holocaust denier.
Yeah, right. They use it just to shut people down, the climate change denier argument. And what I would say is, look at the history, look at the timeline, look at the cycles. And if we look throughout history, we've had periods of warming, but we've also had mini ice ages. And several hundred years ago, we had something called the Maunder Minimum, where we had a massive drop in temperatures. We also had a drop in food production, and the River Thames froze over in the UK. And in fact, we're actually heading into another mini ice age. And I don't know if you had David Dubine on, but he's been talking about that, how we're having this new cycle. He's predicting it's a 2,000-year cycle with a higher than 50% drop in global food production. And his theory is the reason they're rolling out 5G is basically as a weapon to keep control of the population when there's not going to be enough food. And this is what the smart city is about. This is what the sustainable development goals are about.
Why do you think there's not going to be enough food?
Because when there's cold weather, severe cold weather, food doesn't grow as well. So we see near the equator in countries such as South Spain, south of Portugal, where the food is growing much more, it's much more available, it's much fresher, there's much more sunlight. But in the cooler climates, we don't have as much food production there. So during these solar dimming periods, food production goes down. The weather is more harsh. And David Dubine, he worked as a coffee trader. So he went to Myanmar when he heard about global warming. He thought, great, I can make more money with coffee because coffee is going to be growing a lot better with this climate change, this global warming.
But do you think the temperatures will go down, will decrease so much?
Well, at the moment we're having a lot of rainfall in the UK and we're having increasing cold weather, and actually it's been cooling. The global temperatures have been cooling over the last few years.
Radically, or what?
I would say, I mean, for me, I felt it's more of a gradual process, but he's predicting some quite severe cooling. And he's got the evidence to back it up with all the cold weather crop losses that are occurring around the globe.
So climate change is real.
It is real, exactly. But it's not, most of it, I believe, is due to the sun and not man-made. So I think if we look at volcanoes, they emit more CO2 than humans do.
It could not be HAARP.
Right. I believe there's manipulation of the weather. I've heard of HAARP. Barry Trower has talked about HAARP. And I think this is also very serious, you know. What's happening on our skies, you know. There are a lot of these chemical particulates being sprayed from planes.
What people call chemtrails.
Chemtrails. And there's this Harvard study, a Harvard research program called SCOPEX, which David Dubine refers to, where they're admitting to spraying the skies. This is very dangerous, you know.
And it's not just contrails.
No, it's not contrails, it's chemtrails. The difference is contrails are a lot shorter. Chemtrails, they're spraying all of these chemical particulates and you just see the trails go on and on.
And they widen, huh?
Yeah.
Look like clouds eventually. Yep. Are those the ones?
That's the ones, that's right. This is not my area of expertise, it's mostly 5G. But I think what's really important is to keep an open mind about all of these things. And just stay humble and do your own research. That's what I say to people. I say, don't believe a word I say. Do your own research into it. Why have you got pilots? Why have you got military personnel saying that chemtrails are real, that are whistleblowers? Are all of these people lying? I don't think so. Are all of these hundreds of doctors and scientists lying that are saying 5G is a threat? We really need to open our minds and look at the information that's out there and question the mainstream media narrative.
So is HAARP well connected to direct energy weapons, and is connected to 5G in any way?
That's not my area of expertise. I would say Barry Trower and Mark Steele would be able to comment on that. I believe that directed energy weapons are a part of 5G from what I've heard from Mark Steele, and there are many, many people who testify to being targeted individuals, and I think these people are being targeted with frequencies. Barry Trower has stated that people can be targeted with certain frequencies that cause various problems such as organ failure. So I think, this is very dangerous technology. And when we hear about its use in the military, why should it be a surprise? But I always say to people, look, keep an open mind on this. And, we need to trust our governments less. We need to question everything. Otherwise, we're just going to be complete suckers here. And we really need to hold these people accountable for what is basically a human rights crime. Because 5G, this completely breaks the Nuremberg Code. It's experimental technology.
The Nuremberg Code. Please explain that just briefly.
Sure. So the Nuremberg Code came about through the Nuremberg trials, through World War II, when the Nazis were held accountable for the crimes during World War II. And this basically has been put in place to protect humanity. And we can also reference it in terms of 5G because we're testing experimental technology that has not been proven safe. And of course, we heard from Senator Blumenthal when he quizzed the wireless industry, they haven't done the tests to prove that it's safe technology.
How important was that speech by Senator Blumenthal?
It was seminal. Probably one of the most important speeches that we've heard. Holding the wireless industry directly accountable for their actions and then getting the admission from their own mouths that they haven't done the safety tests. And it shows that really they are now liable for what they're doing, And in Denmark, Mads Palsvik, with his political party that he set up to fight 5G, and he's kindly invited me here today. And it's great, to be able to speak with you about this, Lucas. You're doing a great job as well. And a huge audience. We had 100 people in there, all of them concerned. And there are people now in Denmark who are suing the government. They're taking legal action against the government. And I think that's a great action to take, I think going to your local town council meetings, educating your councillors, really pushing the health angle, that this is detrimental to health, giving them the documentation such as the space appeal. But at the end of the day, legal action is something we must also leave on the table, and we must try whatever means we can to stop this toxic technology being rolled out.
So you talked about losing your mother because of a brain tumor.
That's right.
Which is absolutely horrible. Do you think that it was really linked to electromagnetic frequencies?
Yeah, she led a very healthy life. She ate very healthily. She got lots of exercise. She was very cheerful. But she bought a phone. She was gifted this phone, this wireless DECT phone, and she started using it, and she started to develop headaches. And
while talking on it.
I don't know if it's while talking on it, but after using it, since she basically started using it, was about the time she started to develop headaches. And I didn't notice at first that it was directly to do with the phone. But then I realized when she got hold of it, and then as she was using it, headaches were getting worse. And I have friends in Totnes in England who have mobile phones. And a number of them, when they hold them next to their head, they say to me that they're getting headaches or they're feeling heat coming from their phone. Because how I break it down for people, you have microwave ovens and you cook your food right in your microwave, and that's emitting microwave radiation that's heating your food. And these phones that we have, these smartphones or normal mobile phones, are also emitting microwave radiation. So that's why we feel the heat, because they're heating us. They're having the same effect. And yeah, she developed the tumor, and I'm convinced, and doctors have found that there's a very strong correlation with the increase in glioblastoma tumors, and also a whole host of other neurological illnesses, such as Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt from Germany, who's shown that ADHD, autism, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, all of these increases in disease, and it's not just EMF radiation, but of course other contributors, but there's a very, very strong close correlation, possibly the closest, with the rollout of this technology and the use of this technology. And of course they're pushing it on children now. You've got iCots, where you've got the baby's cot with the iPad on, or the little potty where an iPad can be placed. And we're seeing so much depression and suicide now in schools. There's all the Wi-Fi in schools. When I was in Japan, they're installing all the Wi-Fi in the classrooms, Wi-Fi boosters. And I spoke out. I spoke to the headmistress. I said, look, we've got to take these down. And she said, well, we've already spent the money, and we've promised the parents that we're going to have this super fast internet. And I said, yeah, but we're talking lives here. This is money versus lives. And, we've really got to consider the consequences, especially when it comes to children who are innocent victims in this.
So 5G and, well, electromagnetic frequencies in general can be used as a source of, or kind of mind control?
Yep. Well, again, this is not my area of expertise, but I believe anything is possible with these things. And people can be targeted, people can be influenced, their brain waves can be influenced. And it really wouldn't surprise me that 5G will be capable of all sorts of things. So I think it will influence the mind. This isn't something I've really looked into in depth, but yes, I would say that's a very likely possibility.
Some people say that it was used in the military during the Iraq War, or maybe in other wars as well, as a kind of a tool for mind control. Okay,
yeah, very possibly. I think so. Mark would know more about that, and Barry would too. I know that in World War II there was a machine called Mammoth that used these frequencies, and they used it on the Iraqis. They've also got something called phased array, which is in the higher frequency range. And it has this heating effect on the body. So I often say to people, is it difficult to just imagine you've got this microwave oven that cooks food using this microwave radiation? Is it that hard to imagine that something like that could be directed to use as a weapon to heat somebody up instead of just heat your meal? And yes, this has been done, and that's called phased array. And what
Please explain phased array.
Phased array is in the higher frequency range, so we're talking 80 gigahertz range. And you have these vehicles with a board on top. I don't have technical expertise on this issue, so I'll just try and explain it in a basic manner. And from this board, you would have a beam that would target individuals, and immediately they would feel their bodies heating up, their blood cells heating up, and they would move away. So it can be used for crowd control, and it has been used for crowd control. Very dangerous weapon.
So it is mind control.
Well, in terms of influencing your mind to get out of the way, yeah, I guess so, and maybe more.
That's very clear evidence of mind control, isn't it?
There you go, totally. And also, not only that, a lot of people must understand that 5G is not just about using the higher frequencies, but also the lower frequencies, so the sub-gigahertz range. And Mark talks about this. We have a specific range which is 868 megahertz, which can be put into the antennas, and they can 3D map your homes with a sub-gigahertz range. So the higher frequencies don't travel well, but the lower frequencies do. And these can penetrate through the body much more easily. They can penetrate through your home. They can 3D map your home. They can target you in your home. And this is very dangerous.
And the official Wikipedia description of phased arrays is that it's a computer-controlled array of antennas which electronically can be steered to point in different directions without moving the antenna, even to increase the radiation in a desired direction.
That's interesting. I'd say anybody should be concerned when they read that, you know.
Right.
And we should think, you know, we're reading about this use, about how it's used in the military. Why are we rolling it out on our streets?
Most people probably don't
Right.
know or think or believe that 5G is part of that. If it's
That's
just
right.
a fifth generation faster running internet.
Exactly. They just think, oh, you know, it's going to be so convenient. And this is the problem now.
The problem is convenience.
It
really.
is, isn't it? This is the thing. I mean, we're moving towards a society now which is increasingly wireless, cashless society. People are paying with their cards, they're not paying with money anymore. We're seeing in Sweden lots of young people volunteering to microchip themselves. And of course, we're seeing now with the credit cards, touchless, contactless. I guess you have that here in Denmark where you don't even need to put your card in the machine, it's just contactless. One step from the microchip, which would also be contactless. What if you have all your money on this microchip? You do something that the government doesn't like, they can delete all of your money. You know, people are so naive nowadays, and I think we really need to take a step back and think, hold on a minute, should we
So it's
really
all
be
for surveillance.
surveillance, and I think targeting people as well. And yeah, some people literally believe they can make a lot of money from this, but I think the health impact when you're putting these antennas and masts on all these buildings such as hospitals and schools, you're going to have a massive crash in the population. And Professor Martin Powell, PhD, who is Professor of Biochemistry at Washington State University, has stated there's between 6 to 7 years before we see a collective crash in brain function in modern societies. And that's without 5G. With 5G, he's given us 6 months, which I find very serious indeed.
But if somebody is behind the implementation of 5G and really know what is going on, why are they doing that? Because they will be affected by it as well.
That's right, yeah. You'd think it's insane because surely they'll be harmed. But unfortunately, there are people who are invested in AI and who are very keen in having AI implemented and 5G, who want to actually merge with machines, you know, and who want to become cyborgs. And this is the sort of bizarre, there was a documentary on the television in the UK called Human 2.0, and you had a lot of these individuals talking about, you know, they don't want to die, they want to live forever. And merging with machines, Elon Musk talks about it with a new neural link, you know, and I find this very concerning. But there are also, and I'm hoping that due to this, there will be people who are high up who will not want to merge with machines, who will come out and become whistleblowers, and that's what we need.
So you're saying really that 5G and those kind of frequencies, and then also later on, is actually connected to AI, which is artificial intelligence, merging with machines.
That's the way it's going. I mean, if you look at autonomous cars, what's going to control that? It's going to be artificial intelligence. These smart meters are connecting independently. You're now seeing DARPA coming out with military, you're seeing them come out with robots, with machines that are autonomously functioning and independently of human beings. And I find this very concerning. So I think ultimately, what does the industry say about 5G? Well, I've been to a couple of industry events and they say 5G, to summarize, it's machine-to-machine communication. So nothing about humans in there. It's all about machines communicating. And I find this very dark and very concerning, you know, and I think it's a threat to all humanity.
How is 5G different from 4G, 3G, 2G, and so on?
That's a very good question. The main thing about how 5G is different is its densification. So you're seeing a lot more 3G and 4G, as well as all these new frequencies of 5G. And it's the Internet of Things. So it's everything connecting with everything else. It's your smart meter, your smart fridge. It's smart. Now, I've heard a couple of acronyms for the word smart. Mark's probably mentioned secret militarized armaments in residential technology. You've got surveillance, monitoring, and reporting technology. And I would find all of them to be quite accurate. But it's about billions of devices connecting with each other, creating this wireless mesh absolutely everywhere, all over the planet. And also technology beamforming, where antennas can target, they can aim, and of course the ex-chair of the FCC, Tom Wheeler, has admitted to this. He said this technology will be able to aim, it will have military applications. What are we doing? You know, it really is madness. And when I came across 5G, I just thought, if we don't stop this, this really is the end game. It's a takedown. And so we need to really do everything in our power, not just to watch this video, but people watching this video need to take action. Everybody needs to get involved here because we just don't have time.
So what about 6G or 7G? Will there be something called that really? They talk about it already.
If we're still alive, I know that China is pushing for 6G. And China, we're seeing the social credit system getting rolled out now. So people can get a social credit score based on their online behavior. And of course, if they do something to criticize the government, their social credit score will be reduced. They'll then have problems getting on a train or catching a plane. So rules will be imposed. And then if you're caught then talking to somebody who has a low social credit score, your social credit score can get reduced. And of course, China is rolling out 5G in many different countries. In the UK, Huawei is basically installing the infrastructure. So we're seeing a Chinese company taking over our energy supply. And yeah, China's very concerning. They're going very rapidly into a cashless society. People are being financially motivated to pay for things using apps on their phones. This is very, very concerning indeed. So yeah, and all countries are rolling this out. I mean, some countries are taking more action than others. You've got in Australia, legal action with the barrister there, Broomhall, I believe his name is. So yeah, you know, we've really got to try every avenue we can and speak out, hold events, you know, hold market stalls, speak to people in the street, speak to 5 people a day, speak to 10 people a day. You know, when you're in the supermarket, on the telephone, use every opportunity you can to engage with people on this topic.
So what you're really describing is what was written in George Orwell's 1984. Or in Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, and that was in the distant past.
That's right. It's about it bringing about this surveillance society. You're seeing all this facial recognition technology going up. When I came into Copenhagen in the airport, I had to go through this scanner where I'd scan my passport, and then I had this camera. And this is a class 1 carcinogen. But at the end of the day, with 5G, we're not going to be able to just protect ourselves and walk around and you know, be immune from this. We have to take action. And I'm open to anything. If there's anybody who comes forward with any sort of device or something that will neutralize this or harmonize the 5G frequency, then I'm completely open to that. And I think we need to really get involved and look at technologies that obviously can neutralize this, but at the same time, stand up to the government and the organizations rolling this out. I think that's very important. Something I carry around with me is this meter here. Oh. And I can use this to detect the radiation in my home or in any places that I go to.
Please hold that up for the camera.
So right now, these are our levels of exposure in this room. So
is that good or bad?
That's not really very good. I mean, ultimately, you want to have this at 0. So I interviewed a scientist called Guy Hudson, and he was basically stating that for people who are electrosensitive, who can feel the harm from wireless radiation in their bodies, green is a sort of comfortable area for them. So that's between 0.01 to 0.02 volts per squared centimeter. That's for sleeping time. And then for daytime, up to about 0.05 or 0.1 volts per squared centimeter in the yellow. But as you're going higher, you're getting more exposure. If you hold this next to a wireless router, it will turn red. So it's good to get one of these. You can get this on my website at a discount, meters and clothing, on the protection page on my website, 5gawareness.com. But you've got this, you've got the Cornet meter, which is very good. But
can you measure all of these devices? Some people say it's actually difficult to measure some of those things like smart meters, and then it doesn't really...
Smart meters are a bit different. Wireless routers emit constant pulses. With smart meters, they pulse every 20 seconds. So you would hold that next to a smart meter, and then it would jump up to red every 20 seconds. But smart meters are emitting these frequencies everywhere. So if you're living in the home, you're having that pass through your body. And this is the problem. A lot of people can't see the wireless radiation, and that's why, it's difficult to win people over with this. But when we look at the evidence with the plants, you can test it on watercress. You can hold it next to a wireless router and have some watercress in another room. You'll find the seeds don't grow. And they've done tests. Ollie Johansson, who's a well-known scientist, has referenced this test. It's been done a number of times. But yeah, it's good to have one of these, just if you're going to be working somewhere or living somewhere, just to check your exposure and try and find an area where you're going to limit your exposure. But ultimately, I think getting rid of Wi-Fi, wiring in your technology in your home.
Also your smart meter, if you actually say no, or are able in this country also to refuse having a wireless smart meter rigged up inside your home, you can get a cabled solution. Will that still emit some frequencies and be used for surveillance?
Yeah, I think definitely. I believe that's another concern of mine. If we cable this up, will it still be used to surveil and track us? But in the UK, we don't have to have a smart meter. And I believe in Denmark it's compulsory, but people need to challenge the companies. So we had an interesting lady in the UK I interviewed on my YouTube channel, and the title is How to Get Rid of Your Smart Meter in Days. And what happened with her is that the energy company installed a smart meter. She started to have sleep problems, headaches. She called the company and she said, I would like you to remove the meter. They said, I'm sorry, we can't. These are the new meters. You're going to have to stick with the meter. So she said, I'll get a technician to remove the meter myself then. And they said, oh, you're not allowed to do that. So she said, okay, for every day that meter is on my property, I will send you a bill. I will invoice you. So she said that she will charge them £20 starting from tomorrow. The next day, someone from the legal department of the company, it's EDF Energy, contacted her and they removed the smart meter, which is very interesting because I've heard this before, that many things, commerce is the way that they deal with us. And this is something I'm still looking into. But I think we really need to take back our power, and we need to realize that we have actually more power than we realize, and we need to utilize that. Recently, another interesting update, I met with I've been connected with a lady from Russia, and she's in Canada at the moment. She's developed this USB stick here, and they had an event recently in London called the 5G Apocalypse event with Sasha Stone and Mark Steele. And this is cancellation technology. Now, they claim that this can neutralize or cancel 5G, which is quite exciting.
Really?
I'm not able to fully say, oh, this will cancel 5G. I've only just come into receipt of this. But it works like a USB stick. You put it into a plug that then plugs into a wall. And I've got a friend who's very sensitive generally to energy. She's sensitive to Wi-Fi, she's sensitive to other things. She doesn't have Wi-Fi in her house though, but I plugged it in and immediately she felt calm. She felt a positive energy in the room.
But how can this USB stick do anything in a room?
You'll have to ask the scientists. They have, I've just come into receipt of it, but I believe there are definitely technologies out there. If there are technologies that harm us, there have got to be technologies that can help us. And the website, just to mention this, the lady...
Some sort of magnetism?
It works... what I understand is that it works like a sort of cancellation device, so cancelling out the negative. Mark Steele has used it in his home. He's endorsed it. The website that it was from, the lady's website, is 5G-resotoneshield.com. That's 5G-REZOTONE shield.com. And there are a lot of scientists who endorse this, apparently, but I've just come into contact. I was given to try it out, so I'm still looking into it. But anything that we can use to undermine the 5G rollout or to save humanity, I'm supporting and I'm hugely in favor of. But I would say one really important action we must take, confront the local councils, legal action, anything we can do to stop the rollout of this technology. I even hear in the north of England, some people are smashing off the antennas on the street lamps and even taking off panels from the LED street lights or the bottom of these towers, and then smashing up the electrics in there.
But they could be prosecuted or even jailed
I suppose
for doing
they could
that,
be,
right?
yeah. I just hear about this happening, and then they're using builder's foam or concrete to fill up this area where these internal electrics are, and then rendering them unusable. But I would recommend people try the safe route. Try the safe route. Engage with your politicians first. Use the law to your advantage.
Otherwise, it's just another means of control to stop you from doing that.
Exactly.
And call you just a local terrorist. Huh?
Right. I certainly think it's bad publicity, though. If something like that gets out in the news, there was that chap in Australia, I think, who took over a tank, and he started to literally just crash into the masts, and he knocked down several masts, causing huge financial damage. I think it was hundreds of thousands or millions of pounds.
Really?
The guy's a hero. But of course, I would not recommend any of these actions because I don't want to get into trouble. I don't want to get people into trouble. But just to relay that I'm hearing of these things, which just shows that people are becoming increasingly resistant to the rollout of this technology. And I think, it's very interesting that there is a fight back, and there's a growing fight back. It's an international fight back.
You're talking about the dangers of mobile phone radiation. However, you yourself also, like everybody basically today, have a mobile phone.
That's right.
And we are very dependent on that, and we are very addicted to it as well. Mm-hmm. You yourself also still have one, and you can probably not live without one, right?
That's right. I mean, for me, because I do so much traveling around in the UK and now abroad, I've come to Denmark to speak on 5G. I need a way to communicate with people, to explain, hey, look, I've arrived, I'm here, to check feedback onto my social media account. I mean, for me, I don't, both my parents have passed away, I don't have any children, so I don't really have anything to lose, so I feel if I have to give my life to help humanity in some way or to make a difference, I'm willing to do that. But at the same time, I try to reduce my exposure by holding my phone away from my head. When you're holding it next to your head, it's one of the worst things you can do. If you have it on your body, keep it on airplane mode or have it off, and then that way.
But can you use earphones or headphones or? You
can get these earphones. They're called AirTube, and that's about a few pounds or a few dollars, and that actually the last few inches near to the ear are just filled with air, and that reduces your exposure significantly. Not those AirPods that you see, those wireless earphones. With the AirPods, the signal's traveling through your head, so that's very dangerous indeed, and people have done tests on these wireless earphones showing that they give off a lot of radiation. So I would just advise limiting, and especially with children, not having these wireless baby monitors, limiting your exposure. It's very important, limiting your mobile phone usage as well.
Mm-hmm. So would you advise people to continue to use their mobile phones? Because what can they do? Just let it go and go back to an older phone?
Well, if people can, I would recommend getting a wired-in landline. which doesn't emit radio frequency radiation. Getting an Ethernet cable, getting as much of your technology wired in as possible. Instead of a smartphone, you can get a dumb phone or one of these old-fashioned phones that you just make calls and send texts with. You have less exposure from that. Just make your feelings known to the telecommunications industry, to the phone companies, that these phones are causing a hazard for people. And just to really limit your exposure. Don't let your child have a phone. Don't let them have a tablet. I have friends of mine, their children have grown up without using any devices, and they're far ahead of their peers in school. They're doing so well, they're very intelligent. And this is the problem. When we use these devices, when we become addicted to them, we stop actually using our brains, right? There was a time when we used to do times table just using in our heads without calculators, or remember people's telephone numbers. Now we just have them already saved, or using paper maps instead of Google Maps. So we're relying more and more on these machines and not really using our own skills, our own cognitive abilities. So we need to really find that independence. And
again, it's very convenient, and it's also a clever way to make people, very addicted to constantly staying connected and be able to get in touch with people also through a lot of communication through social media.
That's right, exactly. And they're very addictive for children. People who raise children, they give them one of these devices, iPad, they try to pull it away. Child gets very angry.
And they can navigate on that device when they're like 1 or 2.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And meanwhile, they're getting all that exposure from the radiation. It really is causing a lot of problems for people, and people are just so disconnected from nature now. I have a friend, he runs a YouTube channel, Primitive Ways, which is all about surviving in the wild, these basic primitive skills. If the grid shut down, if suddenly we lost all our energy, how would we find food in the wild, source water, all of these things? We're just so removed in modern society.
Well, people probably don't want to be bombarded back to the Stone Age. But is that really what is, in a strange way, is happening? What you're talking about, this kill plan that you say that they have with 5G, depopulation, or what?
Well, it is interesting. I mean, in terms of the health effects that it's having, it is having that. It's depopulation, isn't it? With the increasing neurological disease, with the prediction that Professor Martin Powell has made, and he's an extremely intelligent individual, we're going to see a massive crash in the population. And I find that very concerning. What are we going to do? How are we going to man our hospitals? How are we going to run societies if all the people are dying everywhere, and if they've got phone masts on the hospitals? It's just going to cause a massive catastrophe. So I see some very serious consequences from the rollout of this technology, and that's really why we have to stop it. We don't have any choice.
In the former EU capital, Brussels, they actually hesitated and stopped the rollout of 5G.
That's right.
Why do you think it happened there?
That's a very good question. And Rome, So we do have to question, because of course Brussels, that's where the EU building is based, and you've got Rome, there's a lot of nefarious things happening there with the Vatican, and but it does make for bad publicity for 5G. And I must say, in towns in the UK, we've got 8 different locations where councils have invoked a precautionary principle to put a pause on 5G, which is really promising. And of course, in France, the French farmers are suing the government now after having phone masts in their countryside, in their fields, getting paid money, lots of money, thousands of pounds, tens of thousands. And the cattle, the livestock are dying after 2 years.
And also insects, huh?
And insects as well, yeah, massive decline in the insect population. So I think, some of these places, they're banning 5G, but we've got to try and use that to our advantage in our countries to say, hey, look, these locations are banning 5G. I think we should ban 5G if they're putting it on hold, or at least we should have a pause on the technology. until further notice. And of course, it will never be proven safe. You know, we can say it will be paused till it's been proven safe. It will never be safe. But at the end of the day, we have to hold these people to account and never give up and just keep trying.
Is it true that they are putting up 53,000 satellites, antennas, in order to create this so-called smart grid around Earth so that nowhere is safe from radiation?
Yeah, I don't know the exact number of satellites. I'm aware that as far as I know, satellites are going up and the technology will be point to point. So apparently though, what I've heard from Mark is that the primary threat will be from the ground, because of course you've got cloud cover, you've got rain getting in the way of signals from satellites. So I think the primary threat is from ground-based infrastructure, especially from the LED streetlights and the MIMO masts. These long masts, they look like cylinders on the top. At least we have these in the UK. And of course these antennas going up on buildings. That's a major problem. So I would be more concerned about the ground-based infrastructure.
Why do you think that the LED street lights are causing health effects? Why do you think that these lampposts are, well, connected to 5G technology?
Sure. So LED bulbs are basically, you know, they use digital technology. They have chipsets, whereas old-fashioned incandescent bulbs.
We're not talking about the light bulbs that people have in their homes, right?
No, that's right. It's completely new. Yeah, just to differentiate between LED and the old bulbs. But these new LEDs, they're a whole new technology. And they basically, for me, again, I don't have a lot of technical expertise, but in terms of the health effects, just from the LED bulbs themselves without the antennas, they give off a very dangerous level of blue light that has increased the risk of breast and prostate cancer. And this is a study by Exeter University. And they've looked in Barcelona at the effect on the population there. And what it does, it interferes with the circadian rhythm in the body and with the hormones, and it leads to an increase in cancer. So these are going up everywhere. It's a very dangerous form of pollution. And yeah, the LEDs they need the antennas on top of the LED street lights. So I don't know the exact technical explanation as to why, but I know that these street lights are absolutely toxic.
But not the LED light bulbs you have in your home.
They're different from those, yes. So what I understand is that a lot of the street lights don't have diffusers on them. So a lot of LEDs or lights that we'll typically use will have a diffuser, and this diffuser protects us from the light being emitted, the LED lights, the blue light. But a lot of these LED street lights are not being fitted with these diffusers, and that's causing a lot of problems. Blindness. Mark Steele has a friend in Gateshead who's going blind from this. They're taking legal action against the council. So yeah, basically I'd say anybody with LEDs, even in their house, they should get them replaced with old-fashioned bulbs. And also these CFL device, compact fluorescent lights, are also very dangerous. So people really just need to question all the new technology that's getting rolled out. Anything that's getting pitched or promoted as having a low carbon footprint, be very skeptical of that. You know, look into the health impacts of it and decide for yourself.
But many scientists who are allowed to speak in the mainstream media are saying that there are no problems with 5G and that technology is not no health effects at all, they say, probably. So how can people find a lot of studies? How can they do their own research into all of the different evidence that we actually have that it is a major problem?
Sure, I'll give you some names of some doctors to start with. You've got Dr. Sharon Goldberg, you've got Dr. Sarah Starkey, you've got the bioinitiative.org that references a lot of peer-reviewed research. You've got EMF Portal, PubMed. There are thousands of peer-reviewed articles on PubMed. You've also got the Lancet journal, which is one of the most highly respected medical journals in the world. There was a great article in that called Planetary Electromagnetic Pollution. It's time to assess its impact. And that was published in December 2018. And they referenced ICNIRP and the EMF scientist appeal, and they came out in favor of the EMF scientist appeal, which was made up of these hundreds of doctors and scientists, many with PhDs, whereas ICNIRP, where a lot of these doctors or so-called experts who are speaking through the mainstream media, they're referring to these ICNIRP guidelines, which of course, as I mentioned, are made up of these 14 individuals who are not doctors and do not have a biological background.
Mm-hmm. So when people hear all of these things, and some people be very frightened maybe of what their future will bring, what is your best message for people? How can they take part in taking action against 5G or awareness? What would you suggest?
That's a great question. Thanks, Lucas. I would say, first of all, if you don't know anybody at all in your local area, you can start a Facebook page, you can start a meetup.com group, get people in through there. Set up a little market stall in your local area with leaflets you can have on the table. Have a name list, write down names and email addresses or telephone numbers of people you meet, find out if they're in your town. And then you've got your local group. You've got a local group of maybe 5, 10 people. Then you can do an event. And then, I've created templates actually on the website, 5gawareness.com, on the downloads page, where people can create their own event flyer. They can create their own petition. So a petition is very powerful because it gives you I've got a petition template. People can write down names and emails from that to interview people. So that's a great way, for gathering more names in your local area, and then get an event set up. And have screenings at home, there's a great documentary, you must have seen it, called The 5G Apocalypse, and that's reached over 1 million people now. Invite friends around for an evening, for dinner or popcorn, watch that and just get the word out. And then approach your local councils. Once you've got a petition in my town, we've got, maybe 10,000 people. We've got about 1,600 individuals have signed this petition to say they don't want 5G. So when I went to the local town council meeting, I said, I am here to represent the community of my town, Totnes. Here's the petition signed by 1,600 people stating they don't want 5G. That's very powerful ammunition when you're challenging the local council. Do it in a nice way, they might not be aware of it.
And people can also sign the international appeal to stop 5G on Earth and in space.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if they want to get in contact with you, to come to their country or to their place for a lecture or read more about your work or even support you in your election campaign, how can people find you?
They can find me through 5gawareness.com, and I've got a contact page, and people can simply contact me on there, and I'll be happy to engage with them, and I'll be happy to come and give a talk.
It's been very fascinating to talk to you, John Kitson, about the dangers of 5G and what we can actually do to spread awareness. And good luck with your election coming up. John Kitson, thank you for doing this interview.
Thank you very much, Lucas. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much to John Kitson, and thanks to all of you for watching Age of Truth TV. You can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruth.tv. And please like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell for notifications. Your support is greatly appreciated. On behalf of the entire Age of Truth TV team, we thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.